Welcome back, and today we're going to be looking at the Civivi Incisor 2 and the Mini Elementum Fixed blade. Is the Mini Elementum Fixed blade too many? And can a Karambit be a good EDC knife? Well, hopefully we can find out today. The Karambit was designed for tactical use, but I'm not tactical, so it would need to be a good EDC knife. So are hawkbill blades good for EDC? I'm not sure. We will definitely find that out. This one has a razor thin tip. The blade steel on these is Nitro V stainless steel, which is an excellent budget steel, and Civivi does a pretty darn good job with it usually. You got a good sharpening choil, so you can sharpen all the way to the back. The blade has a nice little thumb ramp with some pretty nice grippy jimping there, really locks you in. Now I think it's time to see what this thing can do. The edge that came on it was okay. It didn't have a whole lot of bite to it, and in the beginning I kept getting hung up in the choil area. It also took a little getting used to using that hawkbill, but with that recurve it definitely, trapped the material I was using that I was going through, and it was just pulling straight through it. Wasn't the best slicer in the world, but definitely could get the job done. It was decently comfortable. I was holding it with the ring and then without the ring, so both ways weren't too bad. But like I said, it was awkward for me, being that I'm not really used to using a hawkbill blade. I think this is probably my first one that I've actually used. And now we're going to test the ergos. Definitely not something you would think to grab to do whittling with. And I kept having to adjust my hands because I couldn't find a good grip that was comfortable. Whenever I would choke back with the ring, it was a little bit more comfortable, but I did get a minor hot spot. I was able to get it done. It was actually fairly easy. The way that curvature goes on the blade, it makes it fairly easy to do slicing into the wood. So I'd say it was decently comfortable, not great by any means. And could you do this in a pinch? Yeah, you could definitely do it, no problem. Sorry about the multiple camera angles. I usually do this outside of my garage, but it was way too hot, so I had to bring it in the kitchen, and I couldn't seem to find the right spot to get a good shot. So hopefully you can see good enough, and it came out decent enough as well. This is where this knife really going to shine, that thin tip. You just do a clawing motion and it rips through the material like it's not even there. You can do fine detail work, very, very precise cuts, because you're just dragging that needle-like tip through whatever you're cutting. And yeah, it really, really performed good doing this type of stuff. Besides doing the drag cuts on a flat surface is about the farthest you could better go with this type of blade. You'll see in just a minute I struggled doing any of the other tests. It just you don't have the room to do it. I can get that far, and then I had to do it by hand. So doing drag cuts with the tip, a-okay, and holding objects in your hand, cutting rope, doing this type of stuff where you're rolling that edge around whatever you're cutting, it'll work just fine. But it's going to be limited to the things you can do, kind of like a worn cliff is on a flat surface as well. You can usually find a way to do it, but it's not always going to be the easiest. And I think being that this blade's curved in like that, it really handicaps it doing this type of work. But we managed to get through most of it, and now just kind of showing you some of the things you can do with the in-hand cutting with a hawkbill. It works fairly well. The edge was okay, like I said. Just throwing some extra stuff in there since I couldn't do some of the other things I normally do. This is just a piece of webbing strap. It did fine with that, and this is an inner tube from a bike. It did fine with that. That it's going to excel there because your belly, or the curve is just going. It's going to rip through whatever you're going through. I think it did okay for what it is. The edge wasn't excellent. Let's see how the edge is. Yeah, see, it can definitely use a good sharpening. Now let's take a look at the deployment in action. You have 3 different means to deploy it. You have a very snappy flipper tab. It's riding on ball bearings. Nice button lock action, nice drop shut. You could also reverse flick it. You could slow roll it. And you do have the wave that I'll show right now. The wave works fine. Not really something I usually do that often, but if you like that kind of thing, it does work really well with that integrated little hook that is removable. But I must say, the way this flipper tab's set up, even though I was worried about that little hook there, you just put your finger on top of it and this thing comes out very fast and hard, very smooth, and it's actually pretty fidgety. The handle scales on this one is solid aluminum. You have some milling around there. You have an aluminum ring as well. You have a tip up, left or right handed deep carry pocket clip, T8 construction throughout. You have a nice recessed area for that button lock so you don't accidentally disengage it. Lock up, rock solid, no plate in either direction, very, very tight lock up. Excellent. And a size comparison, my only other Karambit is from Karambit.com, the UDT. It's about the same size. And here it is next to the Ontario Rat Model 1 and 2. It's about the same length as the Rat Model 2. And being that it has solid aluminum frames, it's pretty darn light at about 3.27 ounces. Definitely good for me. I had no issues carrying this one at all. Now for my nitpicks and complaints. For me, the ergos were okay doing regular EDC tasks. If I didn't use the ring, it was okay. When I used the ring, I felt like I was, I had a better grip on it, but my finger lands on that pocket clip. And the same goes with the reverse when you're pulling it out of the pocket. If you're going to be using it in a tactical manner, I can feel that pocket clip. It's a minor hotspot for me. Depends on the size of your hands. I got a good bit of handle left over. Depending on how I'm holding it, should be able to fit your large hands as well. And like I'd said earlier, mine came with a decent edge. It wasn't the best out of box. However, that's something I can easily fix. So my final thoughts on this one, it comes in at $119. I think that's fair compared to some of the other Karambits out there and, less superior steels and stuff like that. This one has excellent action. It's decently comfortable, and like I said, if Karambits are your thing, then yeah, I could recommend this one. Next, we have the Mini Elementum Fixed blade. It comes with a nice Kydex sheath, a ball chain if you want to carry it as a neck knife. This particular one has natural canvas micarta inlays. You got the same, profile as the regular Elementum. And I was super excited whenever I first saw these. I didn't really look at the specs. I really wish I would have, because this thing is tiny at 4.95 inches overall length. That's even smaller than one that I did a short on recently, the Vaquita 2. And in some ways it had the same exact issues I had with this one. You're getting a 2.21 inch Nitro V blade. Hollow ground that, is not super thin because it's a sharp grind, but it comes down, decently. You do have a sharpening choil that clears a plunge, but you're not going to get much sharpening life. After that, you can start to see it starting to widen up. I sharpened it after the review. You do have a pretty nice little point there for, piercing into things. You do have jimping right there that, is somewhat grippy, but it's kind of hard to hold the knife back here, especially with that short handle. But let's see what this little thing can do. The edge that came on this one was all right as well. Not a whole lot of bite to it, and you definitely just don't have a lot of blade length to use. You could get small pieces of cardboard like this processed. You could, I'm sure, open a package just fine, but you're gonna have to watch out. As you can see, I just got a cardboard paper cut on my thumb. It starts to bleed on top of the knife. Fortunately, I don't think you can really see it, but you know, you just got to be mindful where your thumb's at, and that saber grip is the only comfortable place that I could hold the knife to where the knife didn't feel like it was going to spin in my hand, or felt like I had control. But we got through this no problem, or just a little problem at least, and definitely think it's going to probably struggle later on. And we're going to test the ergos and see how well that edge wants to bite. And right away, I tried to hold it in a hammer grip. I just didn't have enough grip on the knife to do that comfortably. And I was trying to not hold it in the saber grip for a minute just because I didn't want to get a splinter in my finger. But, you know, if you wanted to do some fine shaving like this, holding it in the saber grip, you can definitely get it done. It's going to fatigue your wrist and your forearms rather quickly, because I was really gripping that handle tightly, so I had a good enough grip to get this done. But as you can see, it's doing it. Great blade shape for this type of stuff. You know, like I said, the edge was okay. It was definitely good enough to do wood shaving, and you know, in a pinch, you could make some curls for a fire if you needed to. If this was your neck knife you had on you, I would definitely probably grab something bigger, but you could get it done. Doing drag cuts is going to be fairly easy as well. I can get that tip down to what I'm cutting on, and as long as you're not having to put a lot of pressure, downward pressure on the blade, it's going to do it in that pencil grip fairly easily. This thinner tubing, I didn't have to put as much pressure, but this one you got to put a little bit more pressure. So you can see me readjusting my grip because I didn't want that knife to come out of my hands, and I'm really having to pinch it really tightly to keep it from twisting. So you can get, you know, small things like this done, but it's not going to be the easiest. This is where it really struggled, because this stuff is very dense. It's a corner cardboard, and it takes a lot more force to put, downward force, to get through it. So it gets it done, but you know, it took quite a few more tries than a bigger blade would. Now, what I found that was the best to do this was just doing the sawing motion, because I didn't have to put as much pressure on it. And yeah, it's going to dull out your blade quicker, but you can get it done. Definitely not the funnest and easiest knife I've ever used, but you know, for doing quick cuts, I think it's a-okay. All right, now let's talk about this handle right here. Of course, you got a full tang construction, lanyard hole, and you have different options for your inlays. This one is natural canvas micarta. That's nice and contoured. You only have a 2.3 inch grip area. So that was my biggest, you know, complaint with this knife, is you got a very small grip area, and the thickness on these scales is only 0.2 inches from here to here, from, you know, the whole thickness of it. So very thin in hand, and I can barely get, it's like a 2.5 finger grip on there, which, you know, wouldn't be terrible if, you know, you had that extra thickness in the handle. So you could add a lanyard there to give you something else to hold on to. And it's not a bad knife to do like pinch grip style stuff like this and do drag cuts or some sawing motion. You're just not going to have a lot of leverage forcing down into something. You know, that is a shame, because I was super excited when I saw the pictures of these. And like I said, I just didn't look at the actual dimensions. I would have loved to see this at like 6 3/4 inches or even 7 inches. you know, that would have been outstanding, and I would have probably bought multiple of these because it's an excellent shape. Everybody knows that the Elementum's an excellent little knife, and I have the full size Elementum fixed blade. That's a good camp size knife. Man, it would have been so nice. Quick size comparisons. Here it is by the Civivi Vaquita 2, which it's dwarfed by the Vaquita 2, and it's about identical in overall size to the D'Art by Civivi. And this one, you know, was also something that had me scratching my head. And here it is next to the Elementum and the Mini Elementum folder. Last, we have the CRKT Spew and the QSP Canary. This one right here is perfect, and it's about the same size, but just look at the difference in thickness of scales. I can actually hold on to this one nicely. This one is about, you know, without the scales. You just see the difference. Nitpicks and complaints. I would have liked them to extend the sharpening choil a little bit, and of course either add a little bit extra length to those scales or at least thicken them up. You know, at least half an inch would have been excellent right there, or 0.4 at least. It would have gave me something to hold on to in a hammer grip. I could have added, you know, a fat lanyard there, but even with that fat lanyard, it's just too thin to hold these tightly. So, you know, it depends on, you know, how big your hands are and what you're wanting this knife for. If you're needing, you know, something very slender that you can keep in a pouch or something, or wears a neck knife, super lightweight, do some pinch cuts, just some really quick, you know, if you need to cut some string off of a shirt, you know, open up boxes and stuff like that, then yeah, I can recommend this one for that. But other than that, as an EDC fixed blade, you know, if you do a good bit of cutting, I just don't think this is the one. You know, you could do fine shavings also to make feather sticks, as you could see in the testing of this one. But other than that, you know, it's pretty limited. So there you go. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, please leave them down below. I hope everybody's having an absolute amazing day. I will see y'all on the next one. Peace.